This week we got Age of X-Men Revelation number 0, Jed McKay, Humberto Ramos, and Marvel just handed the entire X-Men franchise to Doug freaking Ramsey at his first move, brainwashing Cyclops, nuking Washington, and building a mutant cult in Philadelphia. This isn't the future of mankind, Doc. It's the end of the X-Men as we know them.
There has been 0 people in the history of comics that have ever bought a comic because Doug Ramsey is it. There's this weird fascination with Doug as a character in the Marvel offices that stretches back decades. We're now at, I don't know, when did Krakoa era start? 4 years ago at this point? He has been central to that and no one has given a shit yet.
Absolutely not. Which brings us into the big event. The first big thing that people need to know about Age of Revelation, Cyclops broke the X-Men. The downfall of the X-Men in this timeline is directly tied to Cyclops' decision to let Revelation, aka Doug Ramsey, onto the team, a decision he was forced into by Ramsey's new power, now that he has the voice of God to override Cyclops' free will and compel him to approve a raid on a SHIELD facility.
Yeah, I read Preacher too. He's just Jesse Custer with the Genesis entity in him, where he gets to speak everybody to do what they want, including the universe. I guess that's his power. He's a Deus Ex Machina. He just gets to say what is going to happen, and that's what happens. Cyclops, in his infinite wisdom, fucks up again because they have to find another way to tear the guy down by letting Revelation onto the team because he fucking Jedi mind tricked him into it.
Well, he doesn't really Jedi mind trick him until he wants to do the raid on the SHIELD facility, right?
I guess that's a good point. But at the same time, look, if you're the heir to Apocalypse, I'm not letting you anywhere near my fucking team. I don't care if you suck. I don't care if you have the worst power set in the history of, mutant-dom. I don't care if no one has ever given a shit about you or taken you seriously. I'm not letting you anywhere near my fucking team. But
it does feel like a bit of an oversight by Cyclops, as one of the great leaders in all of Marvel history.
Yes, considering that Cyclops is the first other person to ever be possessed by fucking Apocalypse and be the spiritual successor to Apocalypse back when he became it at the end of the 12 storyline 25 fucking years ago. But that would require this editorial team to know anything that happened greater than 2 years ago. But his ability to just literally command, I guess, the structure of reality, it goes way too goddamn far. Ooh, there should be a skyscraper there, and the earth makes a fucking skyscraper. That's the kind of shit that he does in this. He can just speak things into existence, which is kind of, I guess, the next level of his power, but it makes it really boring.
He is a mutant god now, but basically everything that Revelation has done, and we're all seeing this from the eyes of Zorn in the future, is built on lies. Doug Ramsey has achieved apocalyptic godhood by creating a mutant-only empire from the ruins of America, but it's all built on manipulation and secrets. As you mentioned, not only can he control people, he could actually just make trees and vegetation and farms come up with the sound of his voice. He can wish buildings into existence with the sound of his voice. And he also, I guess, broke free Fabian Cortez, when they attacked that SHIELD facility, to use him to amplify his power to become even more powerful than before. He's even terraforming basically a new Krakoa in America.
We believe he kind of speaks mutation into existence too.
But it's just setting the foundation that this new mutant nation isn't built on hope and like a utopia. It's built on coercion, indoctrination, and definitely heavily hinted at that bioterrorism is a huge part of it.
Well, there's a mutant bomb or mutant virus that goes wild. It's another excuse to just make more new Krakoa by now having a population to live there.
Yeah, so first he takes over the X-Men team, usurps Cyclops. Cyclops leaves. Zorn leaves. That was a mistake because Zorn, with his black hole brain, was the only person that really couldn't be manipulated by him directly. But then when it really breaks out and we find out how this foundation is laid for this new Revelation territories, there's an X virus that breaks out, or perhaps they unleashed on Philadelphia, and it turns all the humans into mutants. You say they're mutates, but for the sake of the story, they're saying they're mutants. And then that escalates everything. And then we get basically the destruction of Washington, D.C., because they try to take out Revelation, with assassins. That doesn't work. They try to take him out with snipers. That doesn't work. They try to infiltrate his team. That doesn't work. They decide to drop bombs on him, and he's able to use Fabian and some type of a teleporter to basically drop the bombs on Washington, D.C. and just wipe out the entire political infrastructure of the United States of America, basically taking over everything east of the Mississippi after that. But it's all because of this X virus, and now Philadelphia is the center of his power, basically his capital.
Yeah, just New Krakoa. That's what it is, because it's also growing a lot of that shit. There's not really any dialogue or discussion until literally the last page. There's, I think, 2 dialogue boxes, maybe 3 before that. So it's told 100% from the perspective of Zorn recanting history, I guess 10 years later, just kind of writing his own. Here was the story of how it got there. And Doug is so great. And they have statues of Fabian. And Doug has his own fucking Mount Dougmore.
The big mystery here is this X virus. Is this an offshoot of the legacy virus? I'm assuming that Doug and the X-Men created this. Did somebody else do it? I think that's supposed to be something that we're really interested in.
It'll probably turn out to just be Sinister again. And that justifies why has his book. I'm betting it's so that they could create a new mutant empire, and it's all part of Doug's machinations to manipulate everything into the place where he's creating the world of Apocalypse Wanted, where only the strong survive, and taking on his place as the rightful heir of Apocalypse.
Yeah, but it's kind of strange. When you get into Revelation territories and Zorn is explaining this dystopian nightmare that's going on, you can see that he's not really playing by Apocalypse's rules. He's changing a lot of stuff in favor of mutants, like with the Babbles that are humans and mutant dissenters that have been stripped of their ability to communicate as a punishment. And they're like living on the outskirts and stuff like that.
Regardless of what you think about Apocalypse, he at least played by a set of rules where he wanted the strong to survive. He didn't really stack the deck or put his finger on the scale when he would create these conflicts that would be a survive or die, show that you're stronger so that you can survive. He never really put his finger on the scale. And all we see throughout this entire 21 pages of info dump is, oh, and by the way, and here's another instance where Doug puts his finger on the scale to create a mutant ruled world. It doesn't matter whether or not he's actually the strongest. If you dissent and he feels any threat by you, he's just going to turn you into one of these fucking Babel things.
He's even got his own entire network of Omega kids. These are the spies working for Quentin Quire, their children trained to spy on their families. Basically thought police, with Quentin Quire as their commander, keeping an eye, making sure there's no dissent. You wouldn't want the strongest and fittest to rise up and challenge you.
And that is very un-Apocalypse behavior. Because even Apocalypse was willing to die if somebody was stronger and could push him out of the way. When the government tries to, fight back against him, basically taking over an entire city and then trying to expand his control, they're like, yeah, dude, we were fine when you came in there to kind of be the one to restore order and everything. But we thought you were trying to help us get back to Philly being a livable city and everything. I mean, hey, it's Philly. It's never been a livable city. But now you're taking over and creating an empire there, declaring yourself an independent city state. No, that's not going to happen. We'd rather nuke you. Even then, what does he do? He uses the Vanisher, powered by Fabian Cortez, to redivert that nuke back to Washington, D.C. and kill everybody there because they dared threaten his control or reign or whatever. And maybe this is going to end up being a story about Doug Ramsey's inferiority complex, that whenever he actually gets powers that are worth a damn, he wildly abuses them, becomes an absolutely terrible fucking person, and we never should have let him live in the first place because he wasn't strong enough to survive.
So this is not a utopia. This is a mutant dictatorship. And then we get into the very final twist. Zorn arrives to his destination as he's told us the history of the Age of Revelation and where we are today. And we meet the Resistance. There's Magneto. We've got Beast. We've got Glob, basically decked out to the nines with military equipment, and a very scarred and disheveled Cyclops. And his big plan is to send the younger version of himself a history of the last 10 years so he can avert this potential nightmare.
Everyone seen, and apparently in the Resistance, has fucking wings, but you get beardy Cyclops rolling out with the double bandoliers, kind of very reminiscent of a short-haired version of his Age of Apocalypse, I guess, fit. Is that what the kids are calling it these days? They finally show up and he's going to join the Resistance. They're going to have to do time travel-y stuff to prevent this from ever happening. I read this comic before. It was called Battle of the Atom. That one was created by time travel. This one's to be solved by time travel. I fail to see how this quote-unquote Resistance has any real ability to stop it, considering we've already demonstrated that Cyclops is incredibly easily manipulated by fucking Doug Apocalypse.
Am I the only one that thinks, why put fucking Glob Urban in there with like a military helmet on and weapons when you could just could have put Dupe in there?
Yeah. Dupe actually would have worked better. I mean, if you're going to do the outlandish, stupid character that really shouldn't be all armed up, do at least Dupe, at least make it ridiculous. But no, it's this weird obsession that this office has with Glob. I think because they already ran through the Dupe obsession back in the mid-2000s.
One thing's for certain, Amazing X-Men and the team doesn't quite live up to the name. There's nothing amazing about this team. So that is Age of Revelation number 0, and we are ready for the big event that pops off in about 3 months. I didn't particularly like this issue. I think Humberto Ramos did the best he could. Doesn't really fit his style, but he certainly changed his style to make this look the way it should. Looks like the color is just desaturated. The colors on the image and stuff like that, it's very flat to look at. I will give it a 2 out of 10, a 1 out of 5. Big time fail for me. I did not like this book at all.
I don't even know if I can't really grade it because, again, there's no fucking comic book here.
That will do it. If you would like the full review, you do need to go over to Think Critical Patreon. Check it out there, along with our conversation about all the books coming out during Age of Revelation when it actually debuts out here in October. Hope to see you there very, very soon.